Welcome back to Extreme Reloading. You know, on an earlier episode, we started a test looking at, number one, the effect of modifying the combined overall length to affect a very nice bullet jump, or very short bullet jump. And what we saw is that for this particular Ruger number 1 that I was firing, that rifle did perform better when the bullet was seated close to the lands. In fact, it was a very nice, strong, linear relationship as that bullet was placed closer and closer to the lands, or in other words, it had a smaller jump. Well, then the precision of those rounds increased and the MOA decreased. Well, you know, when we're doing that, what happens is that the case itself, the neck, has less and less hold or grip, let's say, on the bullet itself, giving it a better chance to run out, as we call it, or come out of concentricity. When that bullet is seated deeper into the case, well, it has less of a likelihood for it to run out, and it's going to tend to have better concentricity. Well, in this episode of Extreme Reloading, we're going to be testing just that. What is the effect of bullets that are out of concentricity, or there's some bullet run out? We're going to be firing two separate 5-shot groups where one has very good concentricity. In other words, I'm going to be using the Hornady concentricity gauge to correct any run out. And the second 5-shot group that I'll be firing will have whatever the normal seating gives me. And it's not going to be, most likely, it's not going to be perfectly concentric. The third group that I'll be firing is my standard load. I'm going to take my standard load of 243 Winchester with a pretty good sized jump to the lands, about a 1/10 of an inch, actually 0.14 of an inch off of the lands. I'm going to shoot another 5-shot group with that load. And the load, by the way, is set up using, number one, very well prepared cases. These cases have the flash holes prepared, primer pockets have been uniformed, they've been weight sorted, and right on down the line. These are some extremely uniform cases. And then I'm priming these cases using CCI BR2 large rifle primers, and seeding those primers using a very excellent tool. This is 21st century priming tool. And boy, this does just a beautiful job of uniformly seeding primers. Very easy process. Place the primer in the cup. Place an unprimed case in the shell holder. And then just slowly press the handle and release it, of course. And you're going to have a very nice seeding of that primer, and round to round to round, extremely consistent. Really is excellent, excellent tool. I'm charging these loads with 44.0 grains of Hodgdon 4350. This is an extreme powder. In other words, it's supposed to be temperature insensitive, and compared to some other powders, it probably is less temperature sensitive, but let's understand, all powders will have some temperature sensitivity. 44.0 grains measured out exactly using my RCBS Matchmaster electronic scale. And then I'm topping all this off with these Lapua Scenar-L bullets. These are 90 grain bullets for 6mm, or in other words 243. Going back in, obviously, to my 243 Winchester, and we're going to be using that same Ruger number 1 once again. Well, let me go ahead and finish my loading and then we're going to head out to the range and give these a test. Now I should mention one more thing. I'm going to make sure that we have extremely consistent seating of those bullets. And to do that, I'm going to be measuring combined overall length of each of those cartridges, but measuring from the head of the cartridge or the rim to the ogive, not combined overall length out to the meplat. We saw last time that was actually kind of difficult to achieve a very repeatable measure because those meplats have some deformities to them, but measuring to the ogive is a much more repeatable approach. So I'm going to be seating these things as extremely consistent as I can get those, because in our last episode, if you watched that one, you saw that once we vary the seating depth by about a 2,000th of an inch, they kind of start falling apart. They act erratically or not so consistently with the rest of the group. So we want to keep these combined overall lengths to 1,000th, and we can use this to help achieve that. So again, let me go ahead and get finished up with all these loads, then we're going to head out to the range. You know, when I was first doing my test on bullet jump, I noted that some of these bullets did not achieve the jump I was desirous of. So in other words, I wanted a 2.34 inch combined overall length and measured to the ogive, and I wasn't getting that, even though I had set this Redding die to be very precise. And this is a really precise die. It's just an excellent die. And every one of these graduations will affect or change the bullet seating depth by 1,000th of an inch. But I wasn't getting that. And what that tells me is that the bullets, even though these are Lapua Scenar-L, some of the most consistent bullets you're going to get, they're not perfectly consistent. So here's my little trick. I am going to purposely seat these too long. Okay, I'm going to have too long of a combined overall length. And then I'm going to change or modify the seating on each individual round to give me exactly what I want by dialing it by the 1,000th of an inch as necessary. So let me start with the first case, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to purposely, as I said, seat this too long. I'm going to give it a few thousandths extra. All right, so what we want is 2.273. And as you can see, I have seated this a little bit long, but that was intentional. We are at 2.278, which is 5 thousandths too much. But the thing is, if I look at another round, this is another bullet, but you'll notice that our combined overall length measured to the ogive is 2.279, a thousandth different. So we're going to make individual adjustments on these to make sure that they're all at 2.273. Let me see if I can demonstrate this for you here. This is a 2.279. I need to move it down about 6 thousandths. So my initial setting was here at 38. Now I'm not going to make the assumption that this is absolutely perfect to 1,000th because this is the way things get seated with the bullet shape. So I'm going to work a little bit incrementally. I'm going to drop her down 3 thousandths right there. And now take a look at its depth. See, we made some progress toward that. I still need to go 2 more thousandths. I'm going to carefully do that. Almost there. One more thousandth. Turn it down just a bit. There we go. And there we have it. I don't think I would like to do this for 100 rounds, but certainly this is something reasonable to do. I've got 15 rounds here that I'm actually working with. Something reasonable to do with a small number to complete this test. This is the Hornady concentricity gauge, and as you can see, I have one of my cases loaded in here. And I've got my gauge adjusted to 0. A little bit of a parallax on this camera right now. Looks like it's not quite at 0, but there we go. Now what we do is simply insert this. I like to set it to 0. I mean, you can just remember what it's set at and just watch for how much runout exists. Each of these graduations is 1/1000th of an inch. So as I turn the case here, we'll see that that dial is moving. Now we hit 1/1000th and coming back in, we're back. Okay, so this one had a runout of 1/1000th of an inch. Now 1/1000th of an inch is not too much to sweat. I'm not going to worry about that too much. This one, however, is quite a bit less than 1/1000th. It's about a half. I want to see some bullets with a high runout, and I may not see it. That one's very tight. Now, by the way, the neck tension on all of these rounds is set at 2/1000ths of an inch. Well, that's done. Turned out pretty darn well. I've got 5 rounds I'm going to use in this test where the bullet runout is almost nothing. It's one of them that you saw on the camera there. Ended up with 5 of those, and boy, they are highly concentric. Very, very little bullet runout. These 5 over here, I'm going to be firing as an alternative group where the runout is at least 1/1000th of an inch up to about 2 and a little over 2/1000ths of an inch. And then these others are in between half of 1/1000th up to about 1/1000th. So it's going to be an interesting test here between these two. And again, I'm going to be firing 5 more of my kind of standard load, and I'm ready to head out to the range. So let's go. Well, I'm going to start with my standard load. This one has a jump to the lands of 0.147, so a bit of a hop, skip, and a jump to those lands. But it has shot well in the past, and other times I've been out. It has given me sub-MOA type of 5-shot groups. I'm shooting at 100 yards, the bullseye in the upper right. There's a couple shots in the bullseye in the upper left. Those were my foulers from earlier today. $31.60, that seems fine. Looks like it's climbing vertically. Now this next group has the bullets that have essentially no runout whatsoever. They are so close to perfectly concentric that I don't know that you could get it much better than this. 5 shots, center bull. These are going all over the place, not well at all. That was not a good group. Now this last group has bullets that have a bit of runout. It's at least 1/1000th of an inch of runout up to a little over 2/1000ths of an inch of runout. We're going to see if this makes a difference. And if it makes a difference, I'm wondering if it's going to make it better. Because that previous group really did not shoot well at all. Bullseye in the lower right. Nice. Wow, way to the left. Nice trigger squeeze. Interesting results, no doubt. You know, didn't really achieve my standard single-digit standard deviation on those muzzle velocities. Not really sure why that happened, other than it's just one of those things, I guess. But the precision of the rounds on paper were quite interesting. It was kind of good. You know what was the best group was the group that had some bullet runout, actually up to 2/1000ths, a little bit over. One of those bullets was a little bit over 2/1000ths of an inch of runout, and the other group that I thought might really do well, and this is a little bit contrary to expectations, but that very highly concentric, the bullets had effectively no runout, and it didn't really do that well. In fact, it kind of sprayed those bullets all over the place. Not a good group at all. 1.62 MOA on that 5-shot group, again from 100 yards. My standard seeding group, they were all very consistent, by the way. I checked out on every one of these. Every one of the bullets had a very, well, actually identical combined overall length when measured from the base to the ogive. And that standard seeding then with a .147 jump to the lands gave me a 1.25 MOA. Not terrible, but certainly not as good as effectively a 1 MOA group that I got with those bullets that had a much smaller jump, only a 2/100ths of an inch jump to the lands, and of course a little bit of runout on those bullets. Well, what does all this mean? Does it mean that bullet runout is meaningless, don't even worry about it? I don't think so. I think that what we were comparing were two groups where the bullet runout was pretty minimal to begin with. I was actually hoping to get some bullets that had a runout up into, 3/1000ths or 4/1000ths of an inch, and I have seen that when I was loading my .338 Winchester mag a number of years ago. Some of those Barnes bullets, which tend to be long for caliber, some of those Barnes bullets had 3.5, 4/1000ths inch runout on those things, and by choosing those bullets that had very little runout, or actually using the Hornady concentricity tool to correct some of that runout and get it down into a manageable number, I was able to reduce the size of those groups. And that was pretty promising. But I think what's going on is that if we are working with bullets that have a minimal runout, 2/1000ths of an inch or less, then it really doesn't make too much difference. The difference that we saw in those groups are attributable to other things besides bullet runout and concentricity. It certainly is counterintuitive to think that bullets that are highly concentric, no runout whatsoever, extremely consistent bullets, that those will never shoot well. That's kind of silly to think that. I think that when push comes to shove, those bullets will simply perform better. Maybe we'd see that performance at longer range. I don't know. Again, I think as long as we keep our concentricity or bullet runout down to or less than 2/1000ths of an inch, we're good. And I think that's kind of the story. Thanks for watching this episode of Extreme Reloading. We're going to be back next time shooting the .308 Winchester and the Ruger Precision Rifle once again. You're not going to want to miss that episode.